Hello everyone, welcome to the BA training sessions. My name is Sreekanth and I'll be your trainer for the remainder of this course. A brief background about my experience. I have over 12 years of experience in IT. I'm a PMI certified project management professional and I have a certification from IBM in UML 2.0. Coming to my experience, I have experience in various domains such as finance, telecom, media and entertainment, insurance, and healthcare. And for the past 3 years, I've been working for a healthcare client for their data warehousing and business intelligence projects. Coming to this course, this is a very informal course and it provides practical tips and hands-on exercises to build expertise and confidence using the requirements delivery strategies. And this course teaches business analysis essentials to both new and experienced practitioners. And the interactive workshops in this course would allow the students to practice the techniques as they learn them, and regardless of the participants' skill level, the workshop cases and discussions inspire learning insights from every level of experience. And the other highlights of this course, apart from the concepts of business analysis, this course will also delve into topics such as data warehousing, quality assurance, and we'll be talking very specifically about the healthcare domain and also about concepts such as Six Sigma. And in terms of expectations, what could the students expect from this course? This class would be conducted in a very interactive way, and I would encourage all the students to ask any questions that they may have. And I really wouldn't mind extending the sessions until the topic of discussion is clear to the students. So I would like to make sure that you guys can see the screen. So just let me share my screen first and foremost, and let me know if you guys are able to view my screen properly. You guys able to see my screen now?
Yes.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so this would be our first session. This would be an introductory session to business analysis, and I would kind of give you an overview of what the profession of business analysis entails in this particular lecture. This would be a very introductory session. Okay, so in this session, this is what we're gonna see. I'm gonna introduce. We had a round of introductions, and we'd see what exactly is a project, and what is business analysis, and the levels of business analysts that you would see based on their experience, and the emergence of business analysis as a profession. And then we would have a round of discussion, debates, and questions. All right, so that would be the agenda for today's session. Okay, so before getting started with our session and all, let's just try to understand, because we're trying to get into IT. We're trying to get into the role of an IT business analyst. But what exactly we would do in IT? We would work on projects, right? So it is very important for us to understand what exactly is a project. Okay, what do we mean by a project? So let's get into that definition, and then we'll get into what exactly is business analysis, and what are the different levels of business analysts that we would find. All right, so first and foremost, the definition of a project. A project is a temporary endeavor. It is very important. It is a temporary endeavor with a defined beginning and an end. So what is a project? A project is a temporary endeavor, meaning it's temporary, it's not permanent. So it will have a definite beginning and a definite end time. Okay, so that's what is a project. Say for example, a company is working on a project. They want to build a particular software. That particular activity of building a software will have a definite start date and a definite end date. It's not like it goes on forever. For example, a company wants to build its own office building. It will have a plan, it will have a definite start date and an end date. It does not mean that they would go on and on and on building that project for the entire lifetime, isn't it? So that's what is a project. A project is a temporary endeavor with a defined beginning and an end. What are the characteristics of projects? You need to understand that the projects are temporary and unique in nature, and projects have a definite start and definite end dates, and the end is reached when the project's objectives have been achieved. So what's the project objective in case you'd like to have a office building completed? In that case, completing the, building the entire building is your uh, end of the project. Okay, the project may be cancelled when need for the project no longer exists. Say for example, you have started off with a project, but the objectives of the company have changed. They don't need that project anymore. So in those instances, they would cancel off these projects. Every project creates a unique product, result, or service. Okay, so this is at a very high level what's a project and what's the definition of a project. I just wanted to give you folks an understanding of what this is, because I thought that when we're talking about IT and IT projects, I thought that understanding the definition of project would be very important. So that's the reason I just kind of gave an overview of what a project is all about. Okay, so now let's get into the heart of the discussion for this class. So let's see what exactly is business analysis. So the way I would like to explain business analysis is not through any theoretical definitions as such, but I would like to give you a real life example of what business analysis is, and a real life example, and we'll try to correlate that example to that of business analysis. Okay, so let's get started. So before examining the definition of business analysis, as I said, let's just consider the example of building a house. All right, so imagine that you'd like to have a house built. So a question to you, what would you do when would you like to have a house built? What are the first steps that you would take? Padmini? Plan. Okay. And any inputs from your side, sir? Yeah, we can hear you clear now. Much better.
Okay, great. Yeah, I think there's something wrong with my internet connection.
Sure.
Yeah. Basically, we'll make we'll just see how much it's gonna cost. Make a plan accordingly from there.
Exactly. So you think what's going to be the cost, and what are the benefits I'm going to get out of this particular project, or if I would like to have a house built, you would see what are the advantages that you could get out of this house, isn't it? That would be your main thought process. So you could have n number of reasons why you would like to have a house built. Maybe you would like to avoid paying rent, maybe you consider it as an investment option, or maybe sometimes it's just your dream, isn't it? Sometimes owning a house is a dream for most of the people. They would like to own their own would like to have their own house, and that's their dream. So whatever could be the reason, and you have done a lot of cost benefit analysis to see that having a house would be beneficial for you, so therefore you have decided to have a house built. So the need right now is having a house built. So what would be the next steps that you would take? So once that you have planned, Padmini, and once you have done everything, what is the next step that you would do? So now that there is a need, the need is to have a house built, and you have done your cost benefit analysis. You have seen that having a house built would be a lot beneficial for you. So what would be the next step? You have done your planning. What would be the next step?
Then basically we decide where and how big the house is and stuff like that.
Exactly. Okay. So most of us wouldn't have expertise in building houses. If we were architects, or if we were civil engineers, we know exactly what to do, isn't it? We do not have
Right.
expertise. So as a next step, what would you do? In order to have your house built, you need the help of experts, isn't it? So most of the times you would contact an architect. An architect is a person who specializes in planning, and how the house needs to be built, and all these activities would be done by an architect. They are specialized folks. They are specialized in having the houses planned and built, isn't it?
Yes.
So when you go to an architect's office, what would you do? You explain your needs and expectations to the architect. Isn't that what you do? You go to the architect's office and you tell him, listen, I would like to have this house built, and this is my expectation. And as you just said, you'd say that, I would like to have a house of, maybe built in a half acres land. I would like to have it as a farmhouse, or maybe you would say, I would like to have a duplex, or I would like to have a swimming pool in my house. And whatever could be the expectations that you have, you explain or you kind of detail it out to the architect. And what does the architect do? During this meeting, the first time when you meet an architect, most of the times he would be a listener. He would carefully listen to what you're saying. He would try to understand your expectations. He would try to understand your needs. And occasionally he will ask you relevant questions. He'll try to say, oh, exactly, okay, so I understand your expectations. So, okay, so would you like to have an east facing house, or, just in case it's an Indian and was very concerned about Vastu, then he'll talk about the directions and all those things. So, things like that. So he's trying to understand your need and he's asking pertinent questions here. That is very important, isn't it? In the first meeting, they'll try to get as much information as they can from you. Okay. So after you leave, what is the next step that the architect would do? The architect then goes into his office. He now has an understanding of what your expectations are. He now has understanding of what you're trying to expect from the house. So he goes and he works in his office, and then he generates a blueprint of your house. What's a blueprint? Most of you guys would know it, right? Padmini and sorry, do you know what's a blueprint? What's a blueprint?
Yeah, a blueprint is basically the design of how it's going to be done.
Exactly. It's a virtual representation. A blueprint is not the actual house itself. So that's a distinction that you need to understand, isn't it? You following, Padmini?
Yeah.
Hello, you there?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. So I was just asking you, what do you understand what's a blueprint, right?
Yes.
A blueprint is a virtual
Okay.
representation. Yes, Padmini, your voice is breaking too. Do you mind switching to a telephone?
Oh, can you hear me? No, I put that on mute. So
Oh.
I think you were unable to.
Okay. Yeah.
There's too much of noise going on around here.
Okay. No worries. Okay. So a blueprint, the distinction that you need to know is a blueprint is a virtual representation of your house that you're going to build. It's not real. So that's the clear distinction. Okay. A blueprint is a virtual representation of your house that is going to be built. So that's what the architect would work on. The architect would generate multiple blueprints based on your expectations. Okay. So after he is done with this working on the blueprints, will he start building the house, or will he show this blueprint to you?
Yeah, he'll show it to us first.
Isn't it? That's important, isn't it?
Yes.
He cannot just
Yeah.
go and run away with that blueprint and say whatever I told is a carving on the stone, and you have to build the house like this. You don't do that, isn't it? So obviously,
Yeah.
they would review the blueprints with you. So they would come up with multiple blueprints, and the architect, the next step is that he would review the options with you. So what could happen during this review process? Any suggestions, or what could happen? What do you think that would happen during this review process?
Yeah, I mean, we will basically look at what he has done, and I mean, we either agree with him or ask for some changes in it.
Excellent. Very nice. Good. Is that what you would also do, Padmini? So,
Yes.
isn't it? That's what we would do. That's what would happen in a review session. We would just go to the architect's office. The architect would give us three options. What if you don't like any one of those options? You'd say, I don't like this. Please come up with a different option. Or maybe you like particular option, but you want few changes to be done. You're not completely satisfied, but you would like few changes to be done. So you kind of give an input to him, isn't it? So that's what happens during your review session. So you review all the options that have been provided, and then you approve one of them, isn't it? Based on, or maybe you deny it, or you approve one of it, or you suggest that there could be some changes. Okay, so after this, what is the next step? Approval. After reviewing the various options, you approve one of them, isn't it? So you approve one of the options, and then the architect is not a person who is going to build the house. There's some other specialized person who does it. And who is that? That's a civil engineer, isn't it? The job of an architect is to design a house. The job of an architect is to design a house, kind of giving a virtual representation of how the house would look in the future. So how the house would look in the future, that's what is the job of an architect. He's not going to build the house. So what he's going to do, he's going to take that blueprint. He's going to take that blueprint and he's going to give it to the civil engineer. Okay, and the civil engineer would take that blueprint. Okay, and the architect, he will meet with the civil engineer, and the architect, he will explain the design to the civil engineer. He would explain the design to the civil engineer, and in this discussion, most of the times you wouldn't be involved. You might be involved, but most of the times you wouldn't be involved. The architect is kind of explaining the design or some low level details to the civil engineer. These low level details could be very specific to their profession, which you and me might not be able to understand, isn't it? And then, based on the explanation that the architect has provided, based on the explanation or the direction that the architect has given, the civil engineer starts working on the construction, isn't it? So he will have his men working on the house, and the house would be, you'd start building your house. And the house would be under construction, isn't it? So based on what the architect has explained, the civil engineer has started to work on the house. So what happens after the construction has begun? It's not once the construction has begun, that does not mean that the civil engineer has completely understood everything, or he is doing everything as per the expectation of the customer. So there would be some kind of quality assurance inspection being done to ensure that the house is being built as per the expectations of the customer or not, isn't it? So the quality engineers, what they would do, they would check to see if the house is being built as per the expectations or not. So they're trying to understand if the house is being, what are the expectations of the customers, and if the civil engineer is meeting the expectations or not. So this is done by quality engineers. So if the quality engineers say that no, it does not meet the expectations, what would happen? Or they see that there's some kind of deviation in the expectations. So what would the civil engineer do? They would report it to the civil engineer, and the civil engineer will start rectifying it, isn't it? The civil engineer will correct his things that he has not done as per the expectations, and then the quality engineers would again check it, and they would say, yes, this is good now, you can go ahead. So once the house has passed the quality inspection, what's the next step? The house is built based on your expectations. So now you have your house. So look at this beautiful house. Now you have your own house built, and this is the end product. So what would happen after this one? You'd move into the house. You'd start living in this house, isn't that? But does the story end right there? No, the story does not end right there, isn't it? What happens? You'll have some maintenance activities. Maybe you have to have your lawn maintained on a regular basis, and maybe there's something that is broken in your house, so you need some maintenance. So maintenance is an ongoing activity. This is outside of your project. Your project ends right after your house is built, but after the project is being built as per the expectations, there are certain things that would be done, isn't it? So there's certain maintenance activities that go on in your house if few things break down and things like that. So did you guys follow this entire example of what happens when you would like to have a house built, and what are the series of steps that would happen? You meeting an architect, and the architect coming up with the blueprint of your house, and then the architect reviewing those blueprints with you, and then you having the approval of your one of the blueprints, and the architect meeting the civil engineer constructing your house, and quality inspectors doing some quality checks, and the house is built, and you move in. And after you move in, there could be certain things that might break down. So you need maintenance for those activities. So did you understand this entire flow? This is a simple example, isn't it? So now let's try
Yeah.
to correlate this to an IT project. Let's correlate this example with an IT project. Let's correlate this one. Before that, let's do a small step. What we are trying to do now, let's swap the roles that we have seen above with that of software engineering roles. So in a software environment, we'll try to replace the characters that we've seen above with the characters in a software engineering environment. Okay. So the person who is like, you wanted to build a house in our example, isn't it? So let's say that he is the stakeholder. So now you're in your example, you're a stakeholder, meaning you have a stake in that particular project. You want to have that house built. So you are considered to be a stakeholder. And the stakeholder considers whom? There's an architect that you have contacted. So the stakeholders would be interacting with the business analysts trying to explain what their needs and expectations are. And then we have said that the architect goes and meets a civil engineer. In an IT environment, the civil engineer is your software developer, isn't it? So he's the one who's actually developing the product. And you, as a business analyst, the architect, he developed few artifacts. What were the artifacts that the architect developed? The blueprint. And what exactly was the blueprint? The blueprint was a virtual representation of your house. Similarly, a business analyst would also develop certain artifacts, and those artifacts would be like your blueprint of the software product itself. So what are these artifacts? They are virtual representations of how the software will work in the future. These are not real, meaning they're just virtual representation, pictorial representations as to how the software will work in the future. This is similar to your house example. Okay. And then the architect contacted the civil engineer. Now the business analyst would take these artifacts and explain these artifacts to whom? The software developer. And then the civil engineer in our example started to build the house. So in an IT environment, the software developer will start working on the software. He'll start to build the software. And after the house was built, during this process, the quality assurance folks in the house example, they check to see if the house is being built as per your expectations or not. So in the case of an IT example, in an IT project, the test engineers or the quality assurance team, you might call them as quality assurance even in the testing environment, in an IT environment. So these folks would check to see if the software is being built as per the expectations of the stakeholders or not. And if the software is not being built, or if there is any deviation, or if there is any defect, then they would inform the software developers to correct that deviation, and they would retest that software to see if the software is as now meeting the expectations or not. And once the quality assurance folks or the test engineers give their go ahead, what did happen in our example? In our example, what was the next step that happened? The house was built and the test engineers have certified it. What was the next step? You moved into the house. You move into the house, isn't it? So in an IT environment, this jargon is important. In IT environment, once the product has passed all the quality assurance tests, they say that they're moving the product into production. This is an important term. So moving the product into production. So that's what happens in an IT world. Okay. So once you're moved into the house, we said something might break down. Something which was working fine earlier might break down. So what should happen? Say for example, your kitchen sink is not working properly. So you would have the right person coming in and fixing it. That's part of your maintenance. Or maybe your lawn needs some maintenance. So you'd have few people coming in and taking care of the lawn. Similarly, in an IT environment, whenever the product is being used by the folks in an organization, few things might go wacky. So in that cases, you would have certain set of people who would actually jump in and correct all these anomalies. So these folks are termed as production support engineers, okay? And the activity itself is called production support. Now clear as to what happens in an IT environment and what's the role of a business analyst with a very simple example that we have quoted. Is it making sense? Is the correlation now making any sense to you folks?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is exactly what happens in an IT environment, and this is the sequence of things that would happen. Okay. So we would also discuss what's a software development life cycle and all these things in our future sessions. But I just wanted to give you a very high level overview of what an IT environment would be like, and what would be the role of a business analyst in this particular environment. Okay. So now let's get into the theoretical aspect of the business analysis. This is the definition. As I said, I'm not very keen on definitions. We just read through this definition, and this definition is provided by IIBA. IIBA is International Institute of Business Analysis, and this particular institute, it defines business analysis as the practice of enabling change in an organizational context by defining needs and recommending solutions that deliver value to the stakeholders. So if you read through this definition and try to correlate it with the example, you'd understand it. The practice of enabling change in an organizational context, and this is important, by defining the needs and recommending solutions. In the case of our example, who was defining the needs? The architect was defining the needs, and what he was doing, he was providing you options, various artifacts or various blueprints, and he was recommending solutions that deliver value to the stakeholders. So now clear on this definition? Is this definition making sense to you folks?
Yes.
And International Institute of Business Analysis is an independent non-profit professional association serving the growing field of business analysis. So see, we can talk about this definition right away, and we can jump into the what is business analysis and things like that. This definition wouldn't have made sense if we wouldn't have taken that example. So that's the reason I put the definition way in the end and had an explanation of what we do as a business analyst way before. Okay. So let me know if you have any questions, and if you don't, I'll proceed further.